So I want to spend this video and maybe a few of the next videos talking about gratitude. So that specific topic. And I want to talk about that because, well, I haven't talked about it a lot in these videos or in kind of the thinking I've been doing. But it started to creep in, it's always been there. I've kind of come across the topic, but never directly hit it. But in some things I've been reading and podcasts I've been listening to, it's been more front and center. And it's been positioned in such a way where it's in the framework in which I talk about in these videos. So like how it plays into, in my terms, battling the subconscious mind, how it fits in with like logical mathematical thinking and willpower or mental toughness to kind of overcome and get to objectives or goals or build good habits. Which is not how I traditionally had thought about it, right? I'd heard people talk about, expressing gratitude and being grateful and how there's a lot of benefits that come with that. And I never doubted it, but it never fit into that framework. To me, it sat outside of it. It was just kind of like a good thing to do, like, eating your vegetables. It's just a good thing to do. It's good hygiene, if you will. And obviously there's benefits that come with that, but it didn't fit directly into, the mathematical nature of how we function and how we think in the big L logic. But again, these things I've been listening to have positioned it otherwise. They've started to position it as very directly, I'll kind of lay this out, that rather than needing the mental toughness or the Adrogo mathematical logic to overcome your subconscious mind, perhaps the best way to do it, as some have put forth, is through the practice of gratitude, right? And when I say gratitude, I think what they mean by that, and I'm kind of learning this as I go and thinking through it as I go, but is literally the practice of counting your blessings and being grateful and going through the process of actively thinking for a certain portion of the day or multiple portions of the day about what you're grateful for and what you feel gratitude towards. So it might be people in your life, it might be circumstances, situations, possessions, things that you have, things that you've achieved, but dedicating mental effort, right? Actively, consciously thinking about those things and genuinely expressing gratitude for them. And as it's been positioned, right, again, you could kind of take 10 minutes, 20 minutes at the beginning of the day and do that. You could do it through prayer, the religious component is pretty big here. It could be at the dinner table, right? If you say grace or you just, say your blessings there, say you're thankful. Again, it could be throughout the day where you take time to do that. But the thought is that practicing gratitude, actually is the cleanest path to overcoming the subconscious mind, to doing the difficult things that we need to do, right? I talk a lot about the most challenging thing is when it feels like everything's lined up that says we should do A, but we think long-term, big picture, B is the right thing to do. Simplest example that I always go to is you're sitting on the couch, eating chips, and you think, hey, I should go for a run. And now you have this dilemma, right? It feels good right now to be sitting on the couch eating chips. Everything tells me I should do A, right? And you'll start to get the stories in your head of like my ankle's bothering me, or, it's almost the end of the month, I'll start next month, or it's cold out, I'll wait till the weather's better, whatever it is, right? Everything tells you do A. But you have this sense, your conscious mind has this kind of long-term view that better if you run right now, right? So what I've historically said is you need to be very logical and mathematical in your thinking, make sure you are clear and believe that running now would be better for you, right? Face that reality, get to the truth, and then the mental toughness kicks in to actually accept that and act on it, and those two things are kind of critical. But what they're saying is that the act of practicing gratitude, not in that moment, not related to that, but if you have that mindset and you're practicing that regularly, it almost does something to the calculation. It does something to that mental math where now it makes it easier for you to go for that run in that instance. It's easier for you to conceptually appreciate the long-term benefits of that contrasted versus the short-term benefits, right, of staying on the couch and eating chips, and it allows you to do that thing. And the interesting thing about it, the way it's positioned, which is what makes me skeptical, but I've heard it enough where I need to explore it, is that they say it becomes almost effortless. They say the challenge, the stress, the struggle of the mental toughness that it takes and the logical thinking and all that energy drain that we talk about a lot, that gets removed. It almost becomes a seamless step where it's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to go for a run. So it sounds fucking amazing. It sounds great, which is why it's worth considering and understanding. What's interesting about it is, from my lens right now, there's this perspective of, one, I need to understand the logic behind it. I think everything has a logic behind it. There's an explanation. So I need to understand, for lack of a better phrase, the math behind this. How does 20 minutes in the morning every day of thinking about what I'm grateful for and being genuine about that allow me 6 hours later, when I'm trying to debate if I want to go for a run or not, allow me to do that. I need to see that connection. It's not enough for me to just take the blind leap of faith, at least right now, right? That's my first gut feel of it. I want to understand what's there. Now, if it works, I'll do it, right? I'm not going to be stubborn about it. But to me, there's an explanation, and I want to try to understand that explanation. And to this point, it hasn't been made clear to me. There's a lot of studies that prove the correlation, but they can't explain the why. They can't explain how that connects per se. There's some theories, but it's not fully there. And it's interesting, just as a side, as I've been listening to some of these people speak about it, it's funny because when they talk about the idea, in the last podcast I was listening to, they actually explicitly said, like, logical thinking, willpower. They didn't say mental toughness, but they implied it. Like, that's what people think does it. But that doesn't work as well as gratitude. And it's funny because my physical and mental reaction to that is defensive. Like, wait, whoa. Like, you're saying something almost blasphemous to me and against what I've been saying. So it's a good test for me to, when I say, hey, entertain the possibility that you might be wrong. Entertain the possibility there's a better way. If the truth is different than what I believe, then great. That's what I want. I want the truth. So it's I have to be active on that still, because my gut inclination and reaction is to be defensive to that, to think it must be wrong. Let me prove it wrong. And there's also an aspect of ego there where I feel like, hey, that's not my idea. I want the idea. So I need to, keep working on that and practice on turning that off. But back to the point. I wanted to just kind of lay it out and then give a quick teaser, if you will, about where I think the math is behind this. What is the logic behind gratitude and why it works? But then I want to delve much, much deeper into that. My first thought reaction, I'm not saying it's right, I'm just literally kind of playing through the logic in my mind, and I'll write about this and I'll follow various paths, is the law of balance comes into play, right? So the idea is you're grateful, right? Somebody's done something nice for you. You're grateful to your mother or your parents for how they raised you and what they've done for you. You're grateful to your spouse. You're grateful to somebody at work. You're grateful to the fact that you have, a nice car, whatever it is. It's an equation. It's always an equation in my mind. It's starting to get out of balance. The more gratitude you practice, and if you do it regularly and continuously, and you force it into your mind, thinking, hey, I'm grateful for this. This is good. I have all this stuff. I have everything I need. There's a balance that has to kick in there. There's a balance because there's always a balance, right? The universe won't allow things to go to extremes, for lack of a better phrase. And that balance kicks in, and it tells you, like, hey, you're pretty fortunate. You've got a lot of good here. You've got to give some. You've got too much pleasure almost, right? If you think about where I talk about the mind is always thinking about maximize pleasure, minimize discomfort. You almost become out of balance, or at least you perceive it as such because you're focused on it so much that you have too much pleasure, if that's possible to say. And therefore it feels like, hey, I should give some back. I should balance this a little bit more. Everything's coming my way. I should give some of this out. Right? That's a thought that comes to me. I don't know that that's right? I don't know if our minds are maximizing for pleasure, it would seem like they should just take that and run with it and say, well, I got a bunch of pleasure here, so great. But it's almost as if like we start to feel a bit of guilt about it. We start to feel like, well, I can't have all of this. Like that feels like too much. I should give some out and help out some. I need to explore that more because there's possibly a lot of holes in that logic. And again, there's other theories that I want to explore of why people say gratitude helps and what it kind of brings and what it does and all those types of things. But it's a starting point. It's a starting point that I want to explore further.